We'll do a review in Likutei Sichos in Chelek Chav Zayin, volume 27. This is the second Sicha for the Parshas Tzav. It's a Rashi Sicha, and we'll learn this in memory of Levi Yitzchok ben Rabbi Chaim Tzvi, who's uh, suddenly passed away. He was a dedicated, successful shliach, and we're learning it to benefit his soul. Tein nishmos yitzrura b'tzir Chaim. The Rebbe comes up with a gewaldige chiddush over here in the Pshat and Rashi. The pasuk talks about the korban toida, and when the pasuk says how long you can eat the korban toida, Rashi makes a commentary that really you can eat it all night, but the Chachomim said you can only eat it till chatzos k'dei laharchik ha'odam min aveda, so a person shouldn't accidentally violate and pass the time. This is the first Mishnah, of course, in the Masechta Brachos, the very first Mishnah of all of the Shisha Sidrei Mishnah. So the Rebbe is machadish over here that really this is really based on a posik. It's not like one thinks that the Chachamim came. The Torah says you can eat it until the morning. The Chachamim came and added to the Torah years later to protect, to make sure that it's not, you don't go over the time. So the Chachamim made it only till Chatzos. The Rebbe says no. Why would Rashi give you over here the dinim? Rashi is not a book of dinim, and Rashi would not have to tell you that. And the Rebbe proves this from the many Lashonis that really it's actually a Torah-dik halacha. Even though Rashi uses the Lashon Lama Amru and even Amru Chachamim, but this only means that the Torah itself, as the Rebbe brings other examples, the Torah itself says that the Chachamim, it's mashma from this pasuk, the Chachamim should teach and explain the pasuk, so it's a Torah really, but the Chachamim are the ones. So therefore, this is actually a Torah halacha. This is not just a Rashi telling us stam halachas, and the Rebbe proves it in various different ways, but we'll go step by step. Aleph. In pasuk ubesar zevach toidas shlomov. So what happens with the meat? The Torah talks also about the extra breads, the chalas that come along with the korban toida. So the meat of the toida offering, which is a shlomim, normally a shlomim, if it's not a toida, is eaten for 2 days. One the day and the night, and then the next day. That's a regular shlomim. But a toida, the pasuk says, "B'yoyim korban yochel." You have to eat it only at the day, and then the pasuk says further, "Lo yaniach mimenu ad boker." Don't leave over from the korban till the morning. That's what the pasuk says. Is Rashi maitik the verter? So Rashi quotes the words from the pasuk lo yaniach mimenu ad boker and is mefarish. Don't leave over from the korban till the morning. And Rashi explains, Avol oichel hu kol halayla. Even though it says lo yaniach mimenu ad boker, don't leave it over till the morning. But you can eat all the ways, all the night. You can constantly, you don't have to stop, but you can eat. Imkein lama amru at chatzos. So why did they say, Chachamim say, you can only eat till chatzos? Rashi says, Avol oichel hu kol halaylo, that he can go ahead and eat all night. So why did the Chachamim say till midnight? K'dei laharchik ha'odam min ha'avera, in order to distance a person from an Avera. So he shouldn't accidentally go over the time and eat beyond the boiker, the Chachamim said, stop eating at midnight. And that way will make sure that you won't accidentally transgress. Seems like Rashi is explaining here that although you're allowed to eat it all night, the Chachamim said that you can only eat until midnight in order the person shouldn't violate the Aveda. So the Pashtus learned, man. So simply you learn as midlama omru meint Rashi. Like, what does Rashi mean? Why did they say? Who is they? Omru. Rashi means those was steht in Teres Kahanim al Asar. That which is written, it's stated in the Teres Kahanim right here on the pasuk. B'sar zevach Teres Shlomov. V'im Karbonai says in the Teres Kahanim. And in Mishnah, it's also in the Mishnah in the beginning of Brachas. Lama Amru Chachamim ad Chatzos. Why did the Chachamim say till Chatzos? So basically, that who is the one that says till Chatzos is the Chachamim that said till Chatzos. That's what it says in the Mishnah. That's what it says in Teres Kahanim. In the Rashi, in the first Girsa, the way we read it, says Lama Amru. Why did they say? It doesn't say why did they say. But here, it says clearly, why did the Chachamim say? Those are the sages. Ubefrat, and Rashi says, also as in Kamo Kisve Yad from Pirush Rashi, several manuscripts, handwriting of Rashi, from Rashi's commentary, not Rashi's writing, but the commentary, handwriting commentary was, quote, Rashi was written in their handwriting, is the Girsa, the version is Lama Amru Chachamim, like it actually says in the Teres Kahanim and in the Mishnah, the Chachamim. What it means is, as the Chachamim, Bizman Bayis Sheni, the Chachamim, during the time of the second Beis Hamikdash, haben Geyser given. So the Torah, Minat Torah, up till the Bayis Sheni, you were allowed to eat the meat of the Zavach Torah. You can eat it till Boker, till the morning. But the Chachamim, till Alois HaShachar, till dawn. But the Chachamim, Bayis Sheni, they changed the halacha. Haben Geyser given. They made a decree, as Mizol Esem, B'sar HaZavach, Bloizat Chatzos, that you should eat the meat of the Zavach till Chatzos. Okay, so that seems to be an information about a halacha, which is not Rashi's, that's not Rashi's purpose, B'chlal, to teach us halachas. Is nicht verstandig. Pirush Rashi ala Torah is nicht kein Sefer halachas. Rashi's commentary on the Torah is not a book of laws, nor wie Rashi sagt kamo pamim. Rashi himself says several times, Ani leibasi elo lipshuto shel mikra. I've only come to teach the simple meaning of the pasuk. So so in that case, lamay nafkemina im pshuto shel mikra. What difference does it make in the simple, when we learn the pasuk, the gzeres chachamim, the decree of the sages, man rav noch matan Torah mikra? This is much later, a long time after the time of Matan Torah, which is the pasuk, nitzu esem b'sar hazevach achrei chatzos, that they added that we shouldn't eat the meat of this zevach after chatzos. What difference does it make to us? Why do we need to know this? Why is Rashi quoting this? Also, the Rebbe says the way Rashi writes it, Rashi seems to say that this we know already. This Rashi says in Cain Lama Amru. Why did they say Hastus? It means that this is something that the child, Rashi assumes that it's known, and he's asking Lama Amru Chacham Matchat. So it's Nochmer. Rashi zogt. Rashi says in Cain Lama Amru. Why did they say Dos Haste? That means to say, as his border Rasman based from Frier as Amru At Chatzois. This is clear, without a question, that the Chachamim said till midnight. That's known. Was the far stellt sich the Shaila Lama Amru. That's why the question is, why did they say Lul? Well, the reason you give is to distance the person. But how do you have the question, why did they say? Where would you know even that it's till Chatzos? Where does the child know? Is Tamua from Vanad Veisman in Pshutish Mikra? Where do we know in the simple meaning of the pasuk wegen the Gezeres Chachamim about the decree of the Chachamim? As Rashi soll zu lieb them darfen bewornen the Shaila that Rashi should therefore have to ask the question, Lama Amru ad Chatzos? Why did they say till Chatzos? Rashi is asking, why did they say Tul Chatzois? It means that we know Tul Chatzois. Where do we know this from? In the Pasuk that the carbon can only be Tul Chatzois. We'll see the Rebbe is all explaining that the Pasuk itself, as we'll see later on. So the Rebbe asks on the Rashi, why would Rashi tell us information about a Gezerah of the Chachomim in the second Beis HaMikdash when we're learning the Pshat and the Pasuk over here? What is the connection to know about it? And the Rebbe asks further, this is not unique halacha with regards to the Korban Toida. This is a halacha that all the korbanos that can be eaten at nighttime, the Chachamim said you eat it till midnight. And the one korban that the child may actually be familiar with it, that is Sulchat Sois, is actually the Korban Pesach, because we know the Seder by Pesach we end by Chatzois in order so that it corresponds, so that the eating of the matzah, which corresponds to the korban, should not be eaten after Chatzois. So there's a possibility, or it's likely, that the child knows about this. And Memela over there, Rashi should tell him over there, Lama Omrat Chatzois, because he sees you eat it at Chatzois. But a Toida, Korban Toida, where does the child know? There's no Korban Toida now. So why would he ask Lama Omru at Chatzois? Why would Rashi comment on that? Base. The Pele in Pirush Rashi is not aggressive. The surprise, the wonder in Rashi is even greater. The Bavoranish, this cautioning us, as choch minat Torah kemen essen dem korban ad boker. Although from the Torah one can eat the korban till the morning. Hoben aber the Chachamim geiser gwen, and yet the Chachamim decreed mizoles megan essen nor ad chatzos, that you should only be allowed to eat it until midnight. Is doch shayich by alle korbanos. That applies, that fits by all korbanos. Those that are eaten for a day and a night, or those korbanos can eat until midnight. Was wegen einem von sei, korban Pesach, one of these korbanos that you eat for Yom V'Layla, which is the korban Pesach, hat man schon gelernt in Parshas Bayit. We already learned about it in the portion of Bayit. V'ichlu es habosor v'laylo hazeh. Eat it during this night, the night of Pesach. It says v'lo yisiru mimenu ad boker. Don't leave over to the morning. That's the korban Pesach. So over there, stellt sich the shaila. So the question that is aroused is the question that we have. Pavos bavonet nit Rashi freer. How come Rashi doesn't caution us before by Korban Pesach? Im kein lama amrat chatzos chulu. Why does it chatzos? Why does Rashi wait till here and not before? And the Rebbe says, and especially the source in the Mechilta over there, he does address it. Befrat as in Mechilta dort. Nochdem wer is mefarish as Achilas HaPesach is Achiyala Amud HaShachar. After the Mechilta explains that the Pesach is eaten until dawn, till the morning star goes up, till dawn. We learn top from them kefil, because we learn it from the duplicate lashon ad boker. The Torah says the morning. The morning could mean uh, the Netzachamo. So we're coming to say that no, that it's Achi Yalo Mocha Shachar, 2 times Ad Baker, Litain Tchum Lebakrei Shel Baker, that is to give a boundary for the morning of the morning, which means that you have to stop by not Bnei Tzacham. You can't go further. You have to be dafke. So dafke by Alois Hashacha volunteer. So this is in Mechilta. So after it says that, it says Bnei Ma Omru Ad Chatzos. Why did the Chachamim say until midnight? Kidei lahad chik odom min aveda chulu, in order to distance a person from an aveda. So over there, it's right by Achilas Pesach. He does bring down in the Mechilta this idea. Why did the Chachamim say Tul Chatzos la'archod min aveda? So while Rashi brings down the beginning of the Mechilta, the idea that it says twice Ad Boker Vanosim and Ad Boker, the second Ad Boker is coming to tell us that it has to be from Alois Shachar and not from Netzachamo. Urashi bringt das Cholos Inyan. As fun Ad Boker versteht Pam Shnia. Lernt man ob Liten Boker. Ubo hakosu lahagdim she'osur b'achilam Alois Shachar. So that the Pasuk is coming to tell us that you can't eat from Alois Shachar. He brings down the first part of the Mechilta and is mashmid ma'amruchulu, and he doesn't bring it down. Why did they say? How come only till? Why did the Chachamim say till Chatzos? If Rashi wanted to bring it down, why didn't Rashi bring it in the first time where we read that you can eat the carbon until Alois Shachar and say Lama Amru? Why doesn't he with it? And the Rebbe says, on the contrary, over there it makes more sense to say it because it's an experience the child has by the Seder, which corresponds that we don't eat the Seder after Chatzos. Logically, it's just the other way around. As Hotmer Or zu Bavornen does beim Korban Pesach, there is more room to answer this, to caution us about this by the Korban Pesach, either to tondos rather than doing the Parsha Seinu and our Parsha Betoido when we're talking about the offering of a thanksgiving to Hashem. Borum Belel Pesach Bisman Hazeh, because in the night of Pesach also nowadays is Memedai Kinachilasafi Koiman Farchatzois. We are meticulous to eat the Afikoiman before midnight. Zulibun Tam Bosachilas Afikoiman is a zecher zum Korban Pesach, because eating the Afikoimon is a memory, reminds us of the Korban Pesach. Which wasn't eaten till Chatzos. That's why we eat Afikoimon before Chatzos. And therefore, in this case, Hotan Nor zu Zogun. So therefore, there is room to say, as Medarf Masbir Zain, that you need to explain, one who is learning. You're seeing that you see in the pasuk that the Korban Pesach is eaten until morning, till dawn, and you know that the Seder he finishes at midnight. Vazoi Odian Hoge is nit in stira mitten pasuk. So how our conduct is not conflict the pasuk le'sesiru memenu ad beker, that you don't leave over till the morning, but you could eat all the way up to the morning. And here we're eating a dafke before chatzos, so you have to explain that minat Torah it's takiat beker, but it's only the Chachamim decree that. And over there, Rashi doesn't say anything. And over here by Korban Torah, we don't have a Torah today. The child doesn't know. Here Rashi tells you, why did the Chachamim say till? We don't even know that the Chachamim said that, and why would Rashi even address that? And that's the issue that the Rebbe is addressing here, and the Rebbe is going to explain. The Rebbe is going to come up that from the pasuk itself, it's actually evident that we have to lashon of the pasuk that we have to do it earlier. The Rebbe is going to explain, even though we use the language of Lama Amru Chachamim, it doesn't really mean a gezerah of the Chachamim later on. It means the Chachamim interpreted the verse, but it's actually a mitzvah from the verse, as we'll see as we go on in Ois Gimel. Ois Gimel. Dabir in them. So the Rebbe explains. First of all, the Rebbe is going to say that the fact that you can only eat to chatzos is not a gezerah derabanan that came many years later, but in Pshat, it started, it's from the pasuk. Notwithstanding that Rashi says, Lama Amru Chachamim, why did the Chachamim say? It is because the Chachamim are learning it from the pasuk, and it's not explicit in the pasuk, and it's not the main theme of the pasuk, as the Rebbe will bring the raya from the parshas of Beshalach. The birinda that inyan azachilas hazavach is nor at chatzos. This idea that eating the zavach is only to chatzos, veis men like pirush Rashi. So we know. How do we know this? According to Rashi, nit fun teiras kohanim un mishnah. Not from the Teres Kahanim and the Mishnah that say that the Chachamim made a Gezeda, nor from Pasuk Gufa, our Pasuk itself. Lefi Pshuto Shel Mikra. When you learn the Pasuk, we see in this Pasuk that you can only eat till Chatzos. Kedel Kamon Siv Dalad Hey. As the Rebbe will explain, Siv Dalad Hey. Mashenke Stam a Gezeda de Rabbanon, as opposed to a ordinary, when the Rabbana make a decree, has no connection to the pasuk. Hot kein shayches nit mit pshute shel mikra. So if this was just a decree of the Rabbana from Teres Kahanim or from the Mishnah, that has no connection with the simple meaning of the pasuk. So Rashi wouldn't say, "Oh, lama amra at chatzos." What do you know at chatzos? So the Rebbe says we know it from the pasuk. How we know from the pasuk, we'll have to wait from Dalad Hey. The Rebbe will be medayik that the pasuk itself tells us. But first, the Rebbe is going to address how could we say that the pasuk itself, that it's not midrabanan, when the Rashi says Lo Amru Chachamim, and the Rebbe will explain now why, even though it says Amru Chachamim, doesn't necessitate that this is a new Gezerah of the Rabbanon, that it's not Minatorah. Und das, was Rashi sagt, der Reif Lama Amru, why did they say? We've read the Girsa, especially according to the version Lama Amru Chachamim. What did the Chachamim say? Seems like very clearly it was said by the sages. Vet sein verstandig, so we can understand this, Leut wie much Ramol Mevair given, according that I already once explained, Loshen Rashi in Parshas B'Shalach. Rashi's language in Parshas B'Shalach. B'negeyet zu Tchum Shabbos, as it relates to the Tchum Shabbos, that on Shabbos one is not allowed to go more than 2,000 ames outside of the city. What does Rashi say? There's a little bit of a strange Loshen in Rashi. Rashi says, the pasuk says, when it was had enough of the gifts that were coming for the Beis Hamikdash, and it says, so the pasuk says, tells them that Shvu ish tachtov, go ahead and each one remain on your place. So Rashi teaches, what does it mean? Mikan somchu chachomim. From here, this pasuk Shvu ish tachtov, the chachamim leaned what they said, Dalid ames liyotze chutz litchum. that one who goes outside of the Tchum Shabbos, outside of the 2,000 Amos, he has 4 Amos in which he doesn't have to stay at that one place, which is after the 2,000 Amos that he went, but he has 4 Amos in his area that he can move around. Then the pasuk further says, after Shvu Yishtachtu, it says Al Yetzei, and the pasuk talks about Al Yetzei not to go out and bring more gifts, but Rashi says further, Elu Alpayim Amo Shel Tchum Shabbos. This is the 2,000 Amos of Tchum Shabbos, which means that we learn from Al Yetzei that this is the 2,000 Am of Tchum Shabbos. And then Rashi continues, V'lei b'meforish. And this is not explicit. The Torah doesn't say not to walk 2,000 Amas. This is not specifically explicit in the Torah. She'ein tchumim elo medivrei sofrim. Tchumim are from the words of the Sofrim. As the Rebbe will learn, we'll see the Rebbe will prove this with Divrei Sofrim, meaning the Sofrim interpreted it from the Pasuk, but it's not in the Pasuk clearly. The Ikroi Shel Mikra, also Rashi says the main part of the Pasuk, Aloikte Hamon Nemar, is talking about those who, I said about the gifts, I confused that. Instead about the Shvu Yishtachto, when they're not going to collect by the mon, Moshe Rabbeinu told them not to go out. They should stay in the place and not to go out and collect. Mainly, it's written, Alikta Hamon Nemar. The main of the pasuk is written by those who collecting the mon. So the pasuk really, the main pasuk, Rashi calls it main. There's a main and there's a secondary. The main pasuk is talking about the people should not go and collect the mon. It's not talking about not to go at Tchum Shabbos. But this Divrei Sofrim, they interpret it to not to go out on 2,000 Amos. The same thing is about the 4 Amos, Chutz L'Tchum, is Somchu Chacham. Let's see what the Rebbe explains this. As Rashi is Medayik B'Lashoni, so Rashi, the Rebbe spoke over there over then. Now Rashi is very precise in his language. And he says, Nor Ikron shel Mikra Likta Hamon Nemar. The main pasuk is talking about those who collect the mon. He said, Baleit Rashi ver der Inyan al von Alpayim Amo shel Tchum Shabbos. Rashi says the Ikra is talking about, but there is still, it also means that too, because the idea of Alpayim Am Tchum Shabbos is learned from pasuk. We derive it, we learn it out from the verse. B'meila is a Sadin Torah. It is a halach of Torah. So the Alpayim Amo, the Divrei Sofrim learned it from the Torah. It's a din Torah. Afal Pivos es is nit Ikroi. It's not the main pasuk pshat, but it's still from the Torah. Which means they learned it out because as the Rebbe is going to explain now, had the Torah just meant that they shouldn't go and collect, the Torah would have been in a very clear language. The fact that the Torah writes in obscure language, that's from the Torah. The Divrei Sofrim tell us, the Chachamim tell us what to learn from it. Pshute shel mikra is es machriach. The simple meaning of the pasuk, it forces this out. It dictates, the simple pshat dictates that the Torah also means the Tchum Shabbos. Warum if the Torah would gemeint nor die legt Amon, if the Torah would have meant only those who collect the mon, had der Loshna Pasuk gedarft sein, the language of the verse should have been Al Yetzu Lilkot B'Yom HaShavi, don't go out to collect on the 7th day for the Monuk Yotzbe. The Baal does the state Beloshen Stami, since it says in a language Stam, closed. There's no specific just says, don't go out. Shavu ish tachtov, sit on your place. Al yetze ish mimkoimei, don't go out of your place. Is der fun muchach, so from this it's evident, as the Torah will euch merame sein, the Torah was to also hint, adin kloli, to a general halacha. Nit nor b'shayches zu Tamon. That would be a general about Shabbos. Elu alpayim am shel tchum Shabbos, to teach us about the 2,000 am of tchum Shabbos. So here we demonstrate to you from that Rashi that while it is talking about the Loikte Hamon, that they shouldn't go collect on Shabbos, but because the Torah writes it in a general way, Klose doesn't talk about specific about collecting them on. We're learning from this a halacha with regards to generally Shabbos. But we have to say that, otherwise the Torah were select Hamon. But we still can't say that this is the main thrust of the pasuk. Nor Hayoy says the Iker v'toichen kloli from the parsha, since the main and the general theme of this parsha is wegen like Hamon, is about those who collect the mon, is that Inya von Tchum Shabbos nit Ikra shel Mikra. So the idea of Tchum Shabbos, that's not the main part of the pasuk, and that's why Ikron is not to go out and collect. But Rashi clearly indicates that that is also a Torah obligation of Tchum Shabbos, but which was revealed and learned by the Sofrim. Und der Pfarr ruft es on Rashi Divrei Sofrim, and that's why Rashi refers to it that the words of the scribes. Rashi says in the beginning, Rashi's the pasuk Lashon Rashi is v'loy b'mefoirish she'ein tchumim elo medivrei sofrim. So Rashi says that tchumim are medivrei sofrim. Rashi uses the word the sofrim over here. Rashi meint don't need zogen. Rashi doesn't mean to say that this is a new halacha that was made up by the Chachamim, by the sages. Sages came by the time of the second Beis Hamikdash and made. Okay, but here we're talking about the mon. By us, we're talking about the zevach. But when Rashi is using the words of Divrei Sofrim, he's trying to tell us that it's really from the Torah. It's just that the Sofrim who learned the Torah, who count the Torah and expound the Torah, they learned it from the Torah. Rashi meint don't need zogen. Rashi doesn't mean to say that this is a speter dike takonos chachomim, that this is a institution by the rabbis of the sages later on. Nor zayin dikan inyan vostet nit befedish impossible. But since this is a matter which is not explicitly in the verse, is nit ikroi shel mikro. It's not the main point of this pasuk. Is this an inyan von divrei sofrim? This is sofrim. Warum was sofrim? Welche seinen medayik in the oisius v'teves. Sofrim is those who are very meticulously looking in as the specific every letter. They count the letters and the words from Sefer HaTorah, and they're safe from this Sefer. They're safe from they're counting the words of the Sefer. They have derived this from this precise language of the Mikra. The reason we call them Sofrim over here to tell us that it's not a Derabanan Dikidin. It's Medivrei Sofrim, it's counted from the Torah. Und these Sofrim, and these Sofrim seien nicht Chachomim Mesuyomim. They are not defined sages in a Tkufa Mesuyames, in a defined period. Welchem gemacht die Gesedes der Rabbanon who made the rabbinic ordinances, the decrees of the Rabbanon. Nor die Sofrim shebechol doir v'doir. These are the scribes of every generation. Onhebdik von Zman Moshe, already at the time of Moshe. They derived what the halacha is. The divrei sofrim means that in Moshe Rabbeinu's times, the scribes then, they figured from the pasuk, al yetze ish mimikoyme, the inyan of Tchum Shabbos. And so that's the second part. That's about the Tchum Shabbos. What about the Dalet Amos? So the Rebbe says now, Loshen Rashi of Shvu Ishtachto. Rashi's language on Shvu Ishtachto. It says, Mekan Somchu Chachomim Dalet Amos Liyetzer Chutz Litchum. Over here, the Chachomim leaned the four Amos that for one who goes outside of the Tchum, that he still can walk, even though he's can't go any far away, but within 4 Amos he can go. As Oder Din, so Rashi tells us, is nit kein speter dike takona. This is not something that has been instituted later on. Nor es is anders der meat, but it is different. Was wird arois gelernt bederach smach during Chachomim. It's different. This is a smach lean by the Chachomim. From Pasuk Gufa, this is lean. It's not an added decree by the Chachamim, but this is part of the Pasuk. Umit Chachamim, who does Rashi mean Chachamim? Meint Rashi the Chachma Yisrael Shebechol Der. It means the sages of every generation. Beginning with Der Shel Moshe, which means already over then. Basically, the Rebbe is proving from this whole thing over here that even though Rashi uses the word Chachomim, he uses the word Divrei Sofrim, it doesn't necessarily mean, or it doesn't mean later generation. It means the sages that interpret and look into the way the verses are written, and that means that it becomes Minat Torah, because the Torah is written in such a way for them to learn it out. That's the pshat over there with regards to the Tchum Shabbos and with regards to the 4 Amos. And we'll see later on in the end of the Sikha, the Rebbe is going to also explain why it changes from Chachamim to Sofrim. But for our purposes is right now, it's suffice to say that this is not a new institution by the Chachamim, but this is already learned out from the Pasuk. This is what the Pasuk means. It was revealed to us by the Chachamim that there is more than just what meets the eye in the simple storyline or the talking about the Likud Amon, but it has more to it, but it's connected and a smach from the Pasuk itself. And now the Rebbe is going to go, no doubt, to explain how in our pasuk there's a very clear indication that the eating of the zevach, the toida, the meat of the toida, has to be finished by chatzois, or at least a lot earlier, from the language of the pasuk. The pasuk seems to say, don't leave over till the morning. It almost says that the eating has to stop before. The pasuk says that you eat it that day. Should have said ad boker and then say lo yaniach. Why does it say eat that day and don't leave over? Which means that goes after eating. When is that shear? That's an earlier shear. Let's look inside. Dalit. Well, derech zeh is their biur. Similar is the explanation by Pirush Rashi Didan in our Rashi. Learning them posik b'yem korbonei yochel. When we read this pasuk, eat it on the day and don't leave over till the morning. The question arises: V'bal the Torah kum do bashtimen dem zman achilas hakorban. Since the Torah is coming to define the time that you eat the korban, had gedacht stehen klar. Should have said b'yem korban yachal ad boker till the morning. We'll talk about the eating. Azman achila is ad boker. Time to eat is till the morning. Pavos is the posik mafsik with an under Indian. Then the posik says interrupts and talks about lo yaniach mimenu, not to leave over, but to talk about what the eating. How long can you eat it for? It says eat it for the day up till the morning. Not say eat it till the day. Don't leave over till the morning. Now, if the Torah is trying to make another prohibition over here, you have to eat it, but there's a prohibition. But the prohibition belongs. The Torah should say you should eat it till then, and then say when the prohibition starts. Und ob der Posik is oisen, zu mazir sein dem lafun lo yanich memenu, if the verse is intending to warn us about the prohibition not to leave over from it, noch zman ha'achila, after the time of eating, so there's a separate prohibition here. What does der Posik gedarf sagen lebesoif? The Posik should have said it at the end. Nochem siyum von inyan harishon, after completing the first subject. B'yoyim korban le'yochel, should eat it on the day ad baker. Tell you when you're eating it till. Then it says lo yaniach menu, and then don't leave from it. Is there fun moving l'chayre? So from this it seems as there is mano achila tzitzich take nit ad baker, that the take, the time of eating does not go till the morning. Und der Pfarr steht nicht yoichal ad baker. Why doesn't say eat till the morning, nor lo yaniach menu ad baker. The eating needs to be done first. Don't leave over till the morning. Weil der Zman von yoichal endigt sich nicht ad baker. Because you can't take eat, the time of eating does not finish till baker. Torah doesn't say eat it because you can't eat it. Nor outside freer, that has to end sometime before, by chatzos. That's what we're going to say the time before. Und the hagbole ad baker, and when the Torah says baker, is nor benegei nich memenu. That's only as leaving over. You have to finish eating by midnight, and lo yaniach, and after midnight, don't leave over until the morning. Yaniach meg euch sein später after chatzos. Me meg is halten bei sich euch noch chatzos. You're allowed to hold on to it till after chatzos. Und in them sagt on Torah, and over there the Torah says lo yaniach memenu ad baker, that the leaving over cannot be till morning. By morning, you have to get rid of it, but not to finish eating. As der yaniach memenu tornit zayin, leaving it is not allowed to be ad baker till the morning, till dawn. By dawn, you're not allowed to leave it over. Ubemela darf man endigen dem yochel. So therefore, you can't leave it with dawn. So the eating needs to be finished bisman hamaruchik ben aveda, in a time which is distant from aveda. That is at chatzos till midnight. Kedei der yaniach mimenu, in order that what you leave from it, only tarainzi and baker, should not come into the morning. You have to finish eating by midnight, so that you don't leave over until the morning. That's the way one would learn the pshat, because it doesn't say eat till midnight, you finish eating before, and you don't leave over from what you ate until the morning. But then the question comes on the other hand. If the Torah meant to aser and dachila, in der Zeit von koidem habayker, if the Torah really means to prohibit eating before the morning, like we're just saying now, lo yaniach, not to eat there. Let's say because of an aveda, to make sure, to make sure that you're not going to come, but still you're saying the Torah says you're not allowed to eat after chatzos. So if the Torah means to prohibit the eating, also in the time from before Kohen Baker, so why did the Torah not tell us what the time is? So the Torah gedarf kaveh zaim dem zman, bizmanim emeges dem boser hazevach. The Torah should have set the time up till when you can eat the meat of the Zabach. Pavozok des Posik Stam, B'yem Korban Yochel, it just says eat it in that day. It doesn't tell you when to stop. We know that it doesn't go to Baiker because the Torah doesn't say Ad Baiker. It only says Lo Yanich Ad Baiker. We know we have to finish beforehand because to make sure that you don't leave over to the Baiker. But when is the time? Was made bepashas im ganzen Yemes less. Simply would mean all night till Alaysa Shachar. B'yom Korban Yochel on the day. No, maybe even till Netzachama. We have two Baikers by the Korban Pesach over here, but over here there's just by one Yaakov. It means all day, the entire time, till the next morning. Was for them is moving. So then it's understood as Ben Megas, not Baker, that you can eat till the Baker. So which one is it? If the Torah only wants you to eat till Chatzos, so the Torah should give you that time. If the Torah only wants you to Chatzos, as it's mashma from the words Lo Yaniach, that you can't leave it till Baker, but eating you have to stop earlier. So why didn't the Torah give you the time? So it technically means that you could eat. So what's going on here? So Rashi, therefore, is finding the middle ground. Rashi says, mainly, you can eat it till the morning. But the Torah itself says that you have to finish it by Chatzos. Because that's the way the Chachamim interpreted the Pasuk in order, when the Pasuk is not clear, to put that time in here. Hey, Dem zogt Rashi as enochanami. That is true. Lo yaniach mimenu ad Baker. Can't leave it till the Baker. Aval oichel hu kol halayla. You can eat it all night. Im kein loma omru ad chatzos. So why did they say, and why does the pasuk leave it blank so that it's still chatzos? And the Chachamim learned out it's still chatzos. Is kidei laharchik odom and haveda. So what does it mean? He explains. Das was Teire sagt lo yaniach mimenu ad Baker. Nit yoichal ad Baker. The fact that Teire says don't leave over to the morning and doesn't say eat to the morning. Von welchen is mashmas der yoichal is nit ad Baker, from which matter it's not to the Baker because Teire doesn't give the time. Uliidoch is the Teire nit magbil kein zman for achilas hazevach, and it doesn't give you a time. So on one hand, it seems it's not Baker, it's only Loyaniach at Baker, but eating you have to stop earlier. And on the other hand, the Torah doesn't tell you when you have to finish eating the Zavach of the Torah. Ubemela, as Loyaniach men at Baker, then it means Loyaniach Baker, maintas as Kenes has not Baker, that you could eat it till the morning because there's no other time that the Torah gave you. So Rashi explained this while the Torah zog dot zwei Sachen. The Torah is telling us two things over here. Aleph, that Iker HaMekuvan, the main intent is Lo Yaniach Men Ad Baker. That's Iker Shel Mikra, like we say before, is not to leave it till the morning. Was Kumt Lernen that comes to teach us. Aval Oichelu Kol HaLayla, you can eat all night because there is no other limitations beferish in the posik, so go ahead and eat it all night. Because the way the pasuk by itself and the halacha is nito kein isur to essen kol halaylo. There is no prohibition to eat all night. That's the main pasuk. Kol zman es is lifnei habayker, as long as it's before the morning. Second part in kein base lama omrat chatzos. What means like this? In the diuk loshen hamikra, when the specific language of the mikra says lo yoniach mimenu ad baker, instead of saying that you should eat until the baker, is the Torah meramis. The Torah hinsa says is dar b'zayna hefsek. There needs to be an interruption. There needs to be some space in between, a distance in time, zwischen Yaniach mimenu und dem Zman von Essen, between the time that leaving it without burning it and the time of eating. Eating has to stop beforehand. Uh, to distance the person from Aveda. The Torah itself says, Lo yaniach mimenu, but the eating has to stop beforehand. Mainly, yes, you can eat, but the Torah is implying here, my time is Omru Chacham at Chatzois. And for that reason, the Chacham said, when is that time Chatzois? Ibal Torah zogt, as es darf sein ar chokas man, fun yaniach mimenu, since the Torah tells us that it needs to be a distance of time from the time that you can't let it alone and you have to stop eating it before the Chachme Yisrael, the sages of the Yidden, durch Abschatzen b'Chachmosom Teva b'nei Odom, because they had to estimate. The Torah didn't give us any. The Torah left it to the Chachamim to estimate the nature of people. Meshayr given, they estimated that Mizder HaChoka meant the Torah at Chatzois. The Torah means till Chatzois. The Chachamim are giving the shir, but they are giving us the shir of the Torah. So why is it saying Omru Chachamim? But then it comes out it's not from the Torah. No, it is from the Torah. V'bald ober ados is nit an isur me iker hadin. Nor blois l'shem archoka. Since it's not an isur like this is the actual time of prohibition is chatzois. Nor the Torah wants us just to distance ourselves. Zoktas the Torah need beferish. That's what the Torah does not say this clearly. Nor durcharemes in diu kaloshin. The Torah said there's a hint in the specific language lo yoniach, but you have to stop eating earlier. Velchavert mefurish from the Chachamim. That's interpreted explicitly by the Chachamim, but it's a Torah din which the Chachamim explain. Okay, move on. So now we understand. Favos Rashi bringt nicht the minion freer. How come Rashi doesn't bring this down before in Parshas Boy? Because Rashi doesn't bring down dinim of the Chachamim. Weil dort is nicht toke remes b'pshute shel mikro dem chiyuv l'archokas achila. Over there in the pasuk there is no hint in the pasuk about the obligation to finish eating before the obligation of when you can't leave it over. Because in the pasuk le'sesirim menad beiker over there by the Korban Pesach, when it says don't leave over to the morning, it doesn't talk about eating of the Pesach. It doesn't talk about when you eat the Pesach. It just says about what happens with the Pesach after you're done eating. It says in the previous pasuk, but here it says you eat it b'yom zivchachem, and then it just says lo yoniach. So we know that this starts further. And the Rebbe is now going to give us another specific language, how we see how Rashi is very precise in his language. With regards in our Pasuk, and in the Pasuk, over there, Betchum Shabbos, Rashi uses the word Sofrim. Sofrim is when we do something of estimation that we learn from the pasuk, but we have to estimate. Like here, we're saying it's chatzois because that's the shear. We learn from the pasuk, but it requires estimation. How much? Rashi used the word sofrim. The same thing is by the Tchum Shabbos to estimate what is the al yetze ishme mekoyme use sofrim. But when we learn out Shvuish Tachtov, over there Rashi uses Lashon Chachamim, because over there it's not about estimation, it's just the Chachamim. But it's all learned from the Torah. Vav, it's all based on the Torah. That's the Rebbe. It's a phenomenal chiddush over here, that the Omru Chachamim over here also, that this is something in Pshuta Shel Mikra, that the Pasuk itself says that we have this harchoka of stopping to eat at Chatzois, which comes through the estimation of the Chachamim. Well, The minyan hanal, the above subjects, Zetman, Oichdem diuk haloshen betachlis in Pirush Rashi al Torah, we see the exact language, total exact, in Rashi's commentary on the Torah. The Parshas B'Shalach beim Isur Techumim, in the portion of B'Shalach, when it talks about the Isur Techumim, Zokt Rashi, She'ein Techumim elo medivrei sofrim, uses the word divrei sofrim, the words of the scribes. Aber beim Inyan von Daled Amos liyetzachus l'chum, beforehand, when Rashi talks about the 4 Amos for one who goes outside of the Tchum, he still has 4 Amos to walk in, is Lashon Rashi mekan somchu chachomim. The Rebbe learned before, Somchu also means that Somchu that's learned out from the Pasuk. But Rashi uses the word Chachomim, not Sofrim. Val derech zeh, beParshusenu, Zokt Rashi, I made a mistake, I said by Yosidon, Zokt Rashi, le der Girse bekam Ksiviyat Kanal, Omru Chachom. So when it comes actually to something that required Hasha'ore, I said it's Sofra, I just switched it around, but it's both Chachomim. Chachomim, as we'll see, the Rebbe will explain. Yeshlemer habir in them. Say the explanation. Der chilik zwischen sofrim and chachomim. What's the difference when we say sofrim or we say chachomim? Is the toyar sofrim is beiker madgish the idea in Sefer HaTorah zeh. Sofrim is mainly emphasizes the knowledge in this Sefer HaTorah, within the book, within the Torah, limud v'diuk b'mikra v'chulu, learning and being deriving from the specific languages in the Pasuk. But the Toyar Chachomim traktim zich pshutik mashmoy, but Chachomim means a wiseness. Them inyan hachokma b'chlal, it talks about wisdom in general. U'menidin dedan, in our case. Darois gelernt in yonim ve'lochus Pasuk v'zayne verbunden mit Siyog la Torah. Those matters that are as a fence for the Torah, laharchik odom in Aveda, to keep a person away from Aveda, that has a connection to the character of Chacham, to know what to stay away from. The mention. They estimate with their wisdom, nature of people, how much a person has to stop in order not to come to violate the leaving over of the carbon, the eating. Takes chochem for that. And based on the wisdom and the nature, knowing they set up the boundaries and the fences as the distance from Aveda. Aber the halachas in Yonim was melernt up from Diuk Loshon HaKosher b'Sefer HaKiyitzbay. But those laws and those matters that we learn from the precise language or from deriving from the specific language that is written in the Sefer, they're not a fence, La Torah. They belong to Sofrim v'Chazainen Medayik in Limud Sefer HaTorah, who are very precise in the study of Sefer HaTorah, and therefore, on the far, by Isur Tuchumim Alpaim Amoshel Tuchum Shabbos, when you come to the 2,000 Amos of Tuchum Shabbos, Zokt Rashi Adosis Medivrei Sofrim, because that's not a siyog, it's not an estimation, it's not a chokhmah, it's from the Sofrim. Medivrei Sofrim, that Isul is the Das Rashi Nitzvtzad and Inyan from siyog together. According to Rashi's view, it's not a fence, it's not a gather. It's not something trying to prevent from something else with no estimation over here. In Rashi, this is not part, that's not a chochem of there, it's just a sofrim. Afilu v'megate amalach rabbi Shabbos, even if you're going to walk, a very far walk on Shabbos is nitod derbay al derech hapshat. There is over here, according to Pshat, Isur mefurish min ha-Torah, a clear prohibition of the Torah. Das is not a halacha neisefes, but this becomes an added halacha was meladen top from the Lashon Ksuvim that we learn from the language of the psukim. Since the Torah doesn't say al yeitzem koimelilkoit, it just says bistam. So we learn out that there's an isur of tuchumim b'Shabbos, but it's nothing. We're not estimating and we're not evaluating anything. It's strictly to learn how to learn from the pasuk. That's by Tchum Shabbos. But to go out the 4 amos for somebody who goes outside of the chum, Zokt Rashi, Mikan Somchu Chachomim. Also, over there has to do with Chochmah. While the heter from Dalad Amos liyetzu chutz litchum, because this allowance of going 4 amos when you go outside of the tchum is totally in Hashoras Teva Odom. That's the Chachomim made it. That's estimating the nature of people. As a mensch ken sich nicht mit samtzim sein. Person cannot restrict himself, confine himself, and bleiben al omde mamish, to remain where he's standing actually. Und der Rebbe hat mir ihm gegeben, Daled Amos, that's why he was given 4 amos, Gimel legufay, 3 for his body, v'echad lepishu d'dayim v'raglayim, 1 to stretch his hands and feet. So that's more like a chacham to understand. So again, they're all Torah dike. We'll learn it out from the Torah. But the question is, it is just a diuk, or it also requires, if it's just a diuk, so then it's suffering, the medayik. But if it requires additional chokhmah general, which is by the Daled Amos, because that's we give you, because that has to do with the estimation. And the same thing is true by Laharchik Odom in Aveda. Similar in our parsha, was Retzach wegen Ageder Visyog. We're talking about a fence and a protection, Laharchik Odom in Aveda, to this, the person Aveda was fodert an opshatz from Teva B'nei Odom. That requires an estimation of the nature of people, Kenal Sivhei. So Rashi, Lit Kama Kisri Yad, and Rashi says, Omru Chachomim. The Chachomim said. So the bottom line is, the Rebbe is Mechadish, that Amru Chachamim means a Torah command, because the Torah would not, Rashi would not tell us something what the Chachamim were Mesakin later on. And the Rebbe learns that the Chachamim means that they learned out, or they brought on the Harchoka from the Torah. And since it explains the Pasuk itself, that's why it's important to the Ben Chamish Lemikra. This is Mesichas Shabbos Pashas Tzav of Shin Daled Mem.